Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for being here tonight. We're so excited that you're all joining us. I'm Amy Harrington. This is my sister, Nancy Harrington, and we are the co-founders of the Passionistas project. For those of you that don't know what we do, we have a podcast, subscription box. We are all about empowering women and helping women find their voices and fighting for equality for all women, which is one of the reasons we're here tonight. But the main reason we're here tonight is to celebrate the inauguration on Wednesday of our first female interracial vice president, Kamala Harris, which we're all incredibly excited about. We hope you enjoyed the retrospective of her kick-ass moments a few minutes ago as you waited for all of us. And thank you again for being here tonight. We really, really are glad you're here.
Excellent. So we also want to thank all of you who are part of our Passionistas community online, and we want to invite the rest of you who are not to join us on the Passionistas project group on Facebook. Then you can keep up with all of our goings on and all of our events and things like that. We also encourage you all to take photos of your screens during the event, post them on social media between now and the end of Inauguration Day on Wednesday, and we're gonna pick 2 winners. And make sure you tag us at the Passionistas project when you post. We're going to give away an I'm Speaking face mask. Woo! And also an I'm Speaking t-shirt. And I can promise you that these are the absolute most comfortable t-shirts you will ever own. I have one on right now and they're amazing. So we'll be giving those away on social media later in the week. So post a picture of yourself on the Zoom. And if you want to buy one of those, we sell them on our shop at thepassionistasproject.com/shop. And if you enter I'm Speaking in the coupon code, you can get 15% off.
So we really are grateful to all of the women who are participating tonight. They're incredible. They all have really unique and special stories to tell. So we wanted to introduce all of them. We have Helen Torres with us, Lisa Brooks, Poonam Saxena, Kim Roxy, Becky Yamamoto, and Delisle Griffin. And after they all tell their stories, we're going to have a roundtable discussion with everybody that told stories, and it's going to be moderated by Karen Herman, who is a dear friend of ours and one of the best interviewers we know. So it's going to be really fun. So please make sure you stick around after the storyteller portion of the show to listen into the Q&A. And if you have questions for any of the women that told the story tonight or for any of us, please drop that in the chat and we'll do our best to get your question asked during the roundtable discussion.
Excellent. And we also wanted to mention that a portion of the proceeds from tonight ticket sales and all of the donations will be made to Every Last One and Girls Inc. One of our storytellers, Gray, chose Every Last One as the charity for this event. It's a nonprofit organization dedicated to ending the damage caused by the cruel and negligent treatment arising from American immigration policy. Their work is wide-ranging and evolves to meet the needs of children and families whose lives are dramatically shaped by our country's constantly shifting immigration policies. And our main Passionistas project charitable partner is Girls Inc. Their comprehensive approach to whole girl development equips girls to navigate gender, economic, and social barriers and grow up healthy, educated, and independent. So we're just about ready to start. As Amy said, stick around for the roundtable. And also at the very end of the night, we're going to be giving away a Passionistas project pack to one of you who's in attendance tonight. So without further ado, Amy's going to introduce our first storyteller.
So our first storyteller tonight is Helen Torres. Helen is the CEO of Hispanas Organized for Political Equality, or HOPE, where she leads one of the nation's most influential Latina organizations. She's been instrumental in the development and implementation of the HOPE Leadership Institute, a program that prepares adult Latinas for their next level of civic participation. Helen's also responsible for the founding and implementation of the HOPE Binational Fellowship an executive leadership program for outstanding Latina professionals from the United States and Mexico, who through increased competence in national and global economic and security issues are in a position to make urgent and long-lasting improvements in the lives of Latinas in the Western Hemisphere. So please welcome Helen Torres.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited, and what a wonderful way to spend a Sunday evening as we prepare and celebrate for Wednesday. As already mentioned, my name is Helen Torres, and my story really starts on the beautiful island of Puerto Rico. If most of you are familiar with the island, obviously the last few years have been very devastating to the island because of Hurricane Maria, but my story actually began way before that, almost 52 years ago when I was born in the island. Actually tonight. It really started with my mother facing what a lot of single parents have to face, decisions of how to raise her two daughters in the best circumstances and in an environment that would be fruitful for them and that she could flourish as well. So my mother, her life got a lot more difficult when it was diagnosed that I was born with a heart disease. And a heart disease that needed to be treated and preparing me for open heart surgery in my near future. So she made the decision to migrate to Detroit, Michigan, where she had a sister and brother who were working in the plants there at GM. And so we migrated from Puerto Rico. She got somewhat established. And we went to a very well-known hospital that had some of the best cardiologists in the world, and that was Henry Ford Hospital. So she made that trek with my sister and I, not knowing the language too well, having a very limited education, and willing to work very hard to ensure that my sister and I were on a trajectory for success, achieving the American dream, but also that I was in a safe place to get my heart surgery. So as she tried as much as she could, she was very difficult. If you're a single mother, you can appreciate this. Very difficult to juggle taking care of a very sick child and keeping at work 100% of the time. So she fell into a welfare to work program that she would be able to work when she could and then get welfare. And I share that with everyone because I think it's important for us to share the stories of how we struggle as community members, as women, and that we can share and say why it's so important to have a safety net. And I'm one of those recipients of a good safety net. So as she was struggling in Detroit, she met my stepfather, a wonderful gentleman. And he just really embraced my sister and I and embraced my mother and all our beautiful Latina-ness. But we did move out to the suburbs. So we went from a community in Detroit that was multicultural, that we felt very safe in because we were with my aunt and uncle, where she was able to participate, my mother, in the school system because they had Spanish speakers. And they were there to help us, my sister and I, really transition from English or Spanish to English. And it was fantastic to be able to be in a place like Detroit, Michigan, where it sure has its, ups and downs, but that we still felt like we were part of a community. We were then transplanted to this beautiful, I was very fortunate that I got along really well. But in retrospect, when we moved to the suburbs, it was a very blue collar town. It was not a multicultural, diverse community. It was almost 100% Caucasian. And my mother really felt alienated right away. And I want to share one key part because I think about, our vice president-elect's journey. And she also came from a single mother. And she also had to kind of navigate different cultures. So my mother was trying to figure that out with her limited education. She started trying to apply for work, and people automatically would open the door for her because race in Detroit was always a big deal. In our country, it's a big deal. But my mother's very light. And so they made some assumptions. But as soon as she spoke, and they always corrected her English, always noticed her very thick accent, questioned her in so many ways, she stopped applying to jobs. And then it came to a point that when she wanted to be more active in our school, the story I would like to share is really the story that, in retrospect, really got me in a role of my advocacy. And that is when I was in third grade. It's the first grade that I attended in a public school. We were going to private school up to then in Detroit. And my mother went to volunteer. She received a call from a very probably type A mother, like den mother of the grade, and was asked by the den mother or whatever her name was to bring a dessert for a sharing at the school. Like we often are asked to when our kids are being asked to bring something to be shared around the room. And I forget what was being celebrated. So there was some kind of miscommunication. And my mother actually baked this very beautiful cake. And this is the best that she could kind of surmise of what was being asked of her. And she was very excited to participate. And I was very excited to see her show up in the room and, thrilled that my mother was taking this step, seeing how difficult already it was for her to adjust in this new community. And it was like instant. This type A personality mother comes up to her and just gets in front of her and says, I asked for cupcakes, not a cake. You have to learn English. And you could just see the soul of my mother just like shrink. And I interjected right away, all of third grade. I don't know I forget what age you are in third grade. And I reprimanded the woman. I said, how dare you? My mother speaks both languages and she's trying really hard. And I look back and when people say, Helen, how'd you get involved in advocacy? And I think that moment always comes when I'm asked that question, that memory always comes up. It's that moment that we don't realize that we're stepping up for someone else. For me, it was my mother. For a lot of you, you could probably think of someone else that you've been able to defend. And that's really at the core of what we're talking about in creating a society of equity, is how do we stand up for each other? How do we correct each other in a positive way to create a good society? Afterwards, I found my voice. I became very active. I had an incredible time in my new community. But little by little, I saw my mother withdraw. And here was this woman, this beautiful Puerto Rican woman, inside and out, who was so active in politics in Puerto Rico and just didn't find that place here in Michigan to activate herself, to be part of a larger community. And I didn't realize that was happening. I think sometimes as children, we are very selfish and we think about ourselves. But I reflect back and I've had these conversations with my mother. And I believe this story also is an example of when we do speak up, when we do find our voices, how perhaps we can help other people find their voices. I ended up going on to a great university, Michigan State University, a proud Spartan. And then through some coincidences, I found myself in California. And I was so hungry to be part of a strong Latina organization. And I stumbled across HOPE, Hispanas Organized for Political Equality, the organization now that I run. And at that time, about 25 years ago, it was 100% volunteer run with the mission to ensure economic and political parity for Latinas. And I still remember when I walked into the room for the first event that I attended for HOPE, that HOPE put together, I was just amazed. And because there was just this spiritual awakening, if you will, of feeling at home, feeling accepted, and having a pathway to really be involved in the politics, in the nurturing of our communities here in the United States, and obviously for me in California. So that feeling, I wanted my mother to have it. I want every Latina to have it. I want every woman to have it. I want everyone in the United States to feel that sense of belonging, of connection, of saying, this is my country. I need to defend it. I need to make sure our democracy is strong and all voices are being heard, and that no one's discriminated against. And that's what we do at HOPE. We prepare our women to go through the political process to ensure that they demystify everything so they do not feel alienated by it, but actually embraced by it. And we've had great results. Our HOPE Leadership Institute now has over 10% of our graduates are elected officials. Over 200 of our women serve on commissions. And through our binational program and other programming, we have our second Latina from HOPE that's serving on the president's cabinet or the president-elect's cabinet, and that is Isabel Guzman. So it's been a wonderful, this journey. And it all starts when I found my voice, when I spoke up and took the time to let someone else know that I'm speaking, but speaking up for my mother. I wish I could do more. I'm just thrilled to be here this evening to share my story with you, and just look forward to hearing from all the other incredible speakers and incredible women as we celebrate our first African-American, Asian Pacific Islander, incredible woman who's being elected as vice president, who's been elected as vice president. And more importantly for me, she is such a role model. And I know she makes all the single mothers out there so proud. So thank you so much.
Awesome.
Thank you so much, Helen. Such a great story. I can just picture little 6-year-old Helen standing up for your mom. I just love that picture. So our next storyteller tonight is Lisa Brooks. Lisa is a registered nurse with a background in informatics, health information systems, and managed care. She spent the first 6 years of her nursing career as a hospice nurse in one of the toughest neighborhoods in New York City. Her nurse peers turned to her as the go-to for technical help when health information systems were still new. This started her down a path towards a career in health technology. Lisa spent the last decade of her career implementing technology for healthcare companies and writing as a hobby on the side. This year, she launched the health technology writing business, Writing the Future of Health, that combines both of her passions. She's on a mission to help everyone cross the digital health divide. So please welcome Lisa Brooks.
Hello. First, I just want to thank Nancy and Amy so much for putting on this event and for including me. I feel incredibly honored and humbled to be included with this amazing group of women. So my story began with my very first job as a nurse, which was on the night shift of a very busy city hospital here in New York. That's pretty much where they put all the new people. So all the recent nursing graduates, first year residents, and then there was always like one unlucky senior person who had to babysit us. So one night, I remember admitting a patient, we can call him Mr. Jacobs. He was a man in his 70s who arrived on my hospital floor at 1 a.m. and he had just been told that he had stage 4 lung cancer. Now, because it was 1 a.m., I actually had time to sit down with Mr. Jacobs. I learned that he lived in Queens his entire life. He used to own a shop there, but he closed it and retired when his wife passed away a few years before. And I also learned that he had 2 adult daughters who showed up on my floor at like 1:30, and they kept thanking me for actually sitting down and talking with them, because before that moment, nobody in the hospital had even spent 5 minutes with them. So Mr. Jacobs thought he was only going to be in the hospital for like a week, maybe 2. And that is in fact what his doctor told him at the time. But as the night shifts went on and the weeks rolled by, Mr. Jacobs had been in the hospital for more like 2 months at the point he pulled me aside. And he said, "Lisa, I'm dying. I know I'm dying." Now, still being a new nurse with no practical experience with life and death, I said something very generic like, "Oh, you have to think positive. You know, you can do this." The stuff you generally hear about cancer campaigns. And he said, "Nope. I know this is what dying feels like. And I just want to go home. I do not want to die here." I really didn't know what to say, so I think I kind of nodded and shuffled away. Well, 2 nights later, when I was not working, one of my coworkers called me to let me know that Mr. Jacobs had died. He pulled off his oxygen in the middle of the night so he could go peacefully when no one was around. After that experience, I decided hospitals were not for me. Instead, I went to work in home hospice care, which means that I was taking care of people in their homes in their last moments of life. And never again would I fail to honor someone's wish about where they want to be in their last moments? The area I was assigned as a home hospice nurse was Harlem. So I mostly had patients who really didn't have much money. A lot of them lived in public housing. A lot of them were regular people. They were social workers, administrative assistants. And so when they needed help, they were dependent on their family, their friends, their neighbors, and me. So shifting gears a little bit, healthcare has been much slower to adopt technology than pretty much any other industry. And when I started as a hospice nurse in 2007, we did a little bit of our documentation in an electronic health system, but most of it was still on paper. In fact, when the director decided she wanted the nurses to move everything off of paper, there was a handful of nurses who chose to retire instead of learning how to use the computer system. So I was among the few nurses who felt comfortable with computers. Plus, I had a lot of opinions about what could be done to improve the system, so we weren't spending all of our time filling out forms. And pretty soon, the other nurses started coming to me when they had questions or ideas. At some point, several of the senior nurses told me I should consider a degree in nursing informatics, which is a combination of nursing and computer science. They also pointed out that since our company would cover full tuition, I'd be a complete idiot not to go back to school. So I took the plunge. I was working as a hospice nurse during the day and taking informatics classes at night. One of the first projects that I had as an informatics nurse was adding alerts to the system when something important happened. And I know that seems very boring now because we all have phones that'll alert us if somebody sends a text or puts a new picture up on Instagram. But more than 10 years ago, we didn't have alerts to tell us if a patient went to the emergency room or was admitted to the hospital. So my project was to add these alerts. And one alert that I added was for when caregivers call in. So caregivers, those are the family, friends, and neighbors that are taking care of a dying person. And it's not uncommon for caregivers to get very anxious as they see the person they care about getting closer to death. Now, in other parts of New York, like on the Upper East Side, wealthy people might hire a private nurse to stay with them, but the patients I cared for did not have that luxury. So shortly after we put this alert in place, I was working phone triage one weekend and I got the alert. So I called the caregiver right away, and it was a woman I knew, and she was scared and worried about her mother. And she was there by herself, and she wanted to call 911. Now, I knew her mother, and her mother had made it very clear that she did not want to be resuscitated. She did not want to die in a hospital, and she certainly did not want to die on the way to a hospital. She wanted to be home. So because I got the alert right away, I was able to reach one of the on-call nurses in the field, and she was able to get there within 20 minutes, which if anybody knows New York City traffic is kind of a miracle. This was pre-Uber and Lyft. Those did not exist. Once she was there, the caregiver calmed down, and her mother was able to pass away peacefully at home where she wanted to be. So that was the moment that proved to me the power of technology. But it was the moment that showed me that technology with people at the center could literally change the last moment of someone's life. I mean, that woman was where she wanted to be. So this is why I am incredibly passionate about health technology. I spent the next 10 years of my career as the bridge between people, whether they be healthcare workers, caregivers, or patients, and technical. And I've been trying to help organizations prepare and use technology to solve problems. So I don't know if anybody noticed, but in 2020, there was kind of a big health crisis. It was also a really big test of who was actually prepared. So who had a telehealth program in place so they could move a doctor's visit from in an office to on video? Who could text? So if their patient moved out of the area, they would still be able to stay in contact. Who was able to trace people who were in contact with the virus? And guess what? There was a lot of failing of that test. We really were not ready. So 2020 was at least a wake-up call. It was a realization within healthcare that there is no path forward without technology. And for me, I decided that 2020 was the year where my voice and my experience would be beneficial. So previously, I had really been a kind of secret writer. I would write things and then hide them and never show anybody. But 2020 was the year when I decided that it was my time to speak up. I started a writing business called Writing the Future of Health. And my mission is to help not just healthcare workers, but also regular people to be ready for where healthcare is going. Thank you.
That was fantastic. Lisa, thank you so much for your story. And also just, you know, I know we all feel this way, but the healthcare workers, one of the reasons we wanted to include you tonight is because we're so grateful to people like you who have been out on the front lines this year and who have built systems that I know you're saying they're not perfect yet, but think of where we would have been without the technology that we do have. So thank you for dedicating your life to speaking from inside the system for the rest of us. We appreciate it. So our next speaker is Poonam Saxena, and Poonam holds a bachelor's degree in psychology and a master's in education. She's a mother of 4 college-age children and has spent 20 years volunteering in her children's school, in their classrooms, and working with their administrators. She's implemented several processes that have benefited all the children at the school. She's currently the host of the podcast EduMe, which focuses on bringing the gap and fostering a stronger relationship between parents and schools by empowering parents to become partners in the school. She also holds weekly edunars and works one-on-one and in small groups as a parenting coach. Poonam is currently an author in the making, writing an education book and a memoir. And she's a wonderful, wonderful friend, and we're grateful that she's here tonight. So please welcome Poonam Saxena.
Thank you so much, Amy and Nancy. What you all are doing is so powerful for every single person here tonight and beyond. And I'm so honored to actually share the stage with so many powerful Passionistas. So thank you for bringing us all together. So my story tonight is a little different, and I want to actually ask you a question first. We're talking about women and speaking. Why do women feel the need to say, I am speaking? It doesn't matter where we come from or what we're doing, but we have that inherent need to say that. And it's, in my view, coming from various points of various ideas. So one is that we feel as women that we are silenced by the loudest voice or the louder voice in the room. We are also not able to give our ideas and voices because we feel like they might not be worthy of sharing. And the most important thing that I think holds us back is that when we are speaking, we feel no one is listening to us. Because when we speak, we want to be heard, we want to have value, and we want to be validated for us, for what we do and what we bring to the table. But women are not the only one who have these challenges. What about the minority groups? I, as a minority, face this challenge every day. I'm judged based on the color of my skin and whether I'm smart enough to sit at the same table as somebody else. So I'm going to ask you, or I'm going to share with you another demographic that you probably haven't thought of as being discriminated against. And those are people with impediments. Think about someone who cannot hear. We are speaking, but they're not able to hear us. Someone who's hard of hearing. And then let's take that and put the other characteristics that I described to you into one person. A minority, a woman, and someone who's hard of hearing. I'm going to share with you tonight a story about just such a person. She is an immigrant. She is a minority, obviously, but she's also profoundly hard of hearing. And for the moment, I'm going to keep you in suspense and call her by the letter S. So I'm going to share you S's story tonight. More than 50 years ago, S began to lose her hearing. She was a second grade teacher and realized that she wasn't hearing her students as well as she once was. She was struggling to understand what they were saying. And even though she had been fitted for hearing aids from that day forward, her hearing was still deteriorating. Imagine for one moment what that must be like, to not be able to hear. So not only was her hearing deteriorating, but something else was changing too, and that was her behavior. She was fearful of misspeaking in a conversation because she didn't want to interject something that wasn't really happening. She didn't want to speak out of turn because she hadn't heard someone else. And she didn't want to redirect the conversation in a way that wasn't the way it was going. So as the years passed, she spoke less and she began to feel silenced. And her confidence diminished. And for those who are hard of hearing, they can feel unengaged and uninformed, which is absolutely not true. But S's family and friends did a lot to help her hear, help her be a part of the conversation, and make sure that we were speaking to her, she was spoken to face to face so she could read lips. And tap her shoulder to redirect her to the speaker. And even repeating what was said so that it was ensured that she was part of what was going on. But that didn't come without frustration, as you can imagine. She was frustrated because she wanted to hear, and it was such a challenge. And it was frustrating for her family and friends because they too wanted her to be a part of the happenings. But then something really amazing happened in September of 2020. Through a series of incredibly fortunate events, she met a doctor that changed her life. This doctor offered her a hearing aid called a Baha, and it's a bone-anchored hearing aid. And basically what happens is the hearing aid is attached to the outside of the ear and is threaded through a sensor that's attached to the bone, and it goes into the middle ear. So basically it's bypassing the outer and middle ear. All of a sudden, she could hear. She could hear her children and grandchildren for the very first time in their lives. It was a powerful, powerful moment. And what happened was she was able to find her confidence again, find her voice again. And because she was able to hear, she was also able to speak. This impacted her quality of life immensely. Now you may be wondering who S is. S is my hero. She's my mom. On December 9th, when she called me from the doctor's office, when she was getting her hearing aid fitted, I thought something had happened because she was speaking so softly. And I never heard her speak that softly before. And I said, what's wrong? And she said, nothing. I just wanted to hear your voice. That's a moment that will forever be etched in my memory. Women, minorities, those with impediments, all want to be heard. The methodology may be different, but the desire is not. So when Kamala Harris turned to Mike Pence and said, Mr. Vice President, I'm speaking, what she actually meant was, I want you to listen. I want you to hear me. And for my family, it is our turn to listen because my mom is speaking. And I'm so honored that she is in the audience today. I'm very proud of you, Mom. Thank you all for your time.
Oh my goodness. All right, I'm not crying, you're crying. What a powerful story. We're so glad to have Poonam's mother here with us tonight. Thank you for joining us. Poonam, that's such an incredible story. I had chills from head to toe. Okay, moving on. Our next speaker, Kim Roxy, is the founder and CEO of Lamique Beauty, a clean beauty brand for multicultural women. She opened her own brick and mortar makeup shop at the age of 21 in Houston, Texas on a $500 investment. Kim ran that store for 14 years and was the youngest African-American woman to have her products carried in a major department store. In 2019, she pivoted her business and launched Lamique as an e-commerce beauty store. In 2020, she secured a partnership with an augmented reality company to launch an innovative tech-enabled website that allows consumers to digitally try on cosmetics. So please welcome Kim Roxy.
Hey everyone. Tonight has just been incredible so far. If you have enjoyed the stories, let me just see you raise a right hand. Raise the right hand. Okay, let me see you raise the left hand. And then just do like this, right? The stories have been amazing. Yes, I see you. I see y'all out there raising your hands. The stories have been amazing. And each one resonates with me. And it just kind of, it's like a thread happening. So how began my story of when it happened for me? I was 21, just graduating from college. I actually I actually grew up playing the piano, and I played classical piano growing up. And my dream was to become a performing classical pianist. But when I got to college and my major was piano, I came to the realization that I could not afford to continue to play piano, that I actually had to contribute to my college education. And so I had to actually stop playing piano and get a job, and pretty much work full-time hours while I've been in school. And I went to the mall looking for a job, just like every teenager does, right? And I get there and thinking I'm gonna work at a cookie shop in the food court or something like that. And I called up my friend and I said, what store did you say was hiring? She said, oh, that makeup counter. And I said, when have you ever seen me put makeup on anybody? Why would I go apply? And she said, well, they're hiring people. You need to go apply. You said you needed a job, right? And so I went to go apply for this job and I ended up getting it. But while there, that's where I fell in love with making women feel good about themselves. Like Poon, my mom actually played such a significant role in my life, and she never left the house without her makeup on. Any ladies out there like that? My mom was, you know, she made sure she always put her best face forward. But I never dabbled in makeup before. But because I needed this job, I was like, I'll figure it out. right? And so I get there, but I really fell in love with helping women smile. I fell in love with a woman telling me her story, like we're doing tonight, and me being like, "Oh, you're amazing, you're beautiful," and that role that I started to play in their lives. I became the top sales producer in my senior year of college. My manager in my store, I said, "I don't know what I'm going to do because my parents are asking me what I'm about to do after college, and the only job I've had is working at this makeup counter. I haven't had an internship or anything." And she said, "You should open up your own makeup shop." And I said, "You think so?" She said, "Yeah, you sell more makeup than anybody here." She was like, "This is your calling, Kim. This is your calling." And so I believed her. And I said, "You know what? Yeah, I think this might be." So I started saving up my money. I told my mom, my mom is one of those moms. She'll never really tell you that she's like, "I don't think it'll happen in a million years." She won't tell you that. She just lets you think that it can happen for you, right? And so she gave me $500, and I saved up my money, and that's how I opened up my own makeup shop. Yeah, Carol. I opened up my own makeup shop in Houston, Texas. But it didn't happen that easy. I went inside the leasing office to go get the space. And if you got the money, the first month rent, the last month rent, you fill out the application, you got everything in place, you got a plan for your business. You would think that you'd be able to rent the location like you wanted to, especially because this mall had some vacancies in this mall. They had room. But I would never get calls back from the leasing office. I send in my application. I was calling, they never called me back. I actually went up there a couple of times. They said, "Oh, we'll get back to you." The secretary said, "Oh, they'll get back to you. They've been really busy." Well, finally this time I was at the crunch point where I had to make a decision if this was what I was going to be doing, if I was going to open up this location. So I went to the leasing office and I met with the leasing manager, and she said, "I'm just not sure if what you're working on is going to work. How old are you again?" And I was like, 21. She's like, "And you're just graduating college and you're opening up a business?" She just couldn't understand why I was doing it. And I said, "Yeah." I said, and I was so excited. I was like, "Yeah, I'm so excited because it's going to be women, who look like me, who have a hard time finding makeup. We're going to do their faces." I was just so excited. And she literally, in that moment, through her confusion of what I was doing, tried to almost confuse me of what I knew I was called to do. And so she said, "I just don't think it'll work." She said, "I just don't, we just can't lease to you." And I said, "Well, and I just can't leave." I said, "Because you have no reason not to lease to me." And she said, "I'm going to go get the owner of the mall. I'm going to let him tell you that that we won't be able to do this." She goes to go get the owner of the mall. He comes in. He said, "Go ahead, kid. Tell me what you're trying to do." And I said, "Well, I have this idea about this makeup shop. I'm going to open it up. I'm going to have it where women are able to come in and get their makeup done, get their eyebrows done." I was like, "No one in this area is properly servicing these women. I'm just going through everything that I'm going to do." And he said, and I said, "I think it'll actually add value to your location. And I think it'll add value to this mall." I was like, "Because there's nothing like it in here. And I'm going to attract a lot of customers here." He said, "So you think that your business is going to add value to this mall?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "You know what, kid? Just because you think so highly of you and your business, I'm going to give you a shot." And I looked at the woman who was the leasing manager. I looked at her and said, "See, you're going to find out this is going to be the best decision of your life." And I opened up that location. They put me in the side of the mall where it was basically no one at. They call the area Asia and they call the rest of the mall America. And they were like, we're gonna put you in Asia. So just when it fails, you know, you'll be over there by yourself. You won't mess up anything. And I was over there maybe 2 months. And the owner of the mall comes over there. He said, you are really making this work. He said, I like what you're over here doing. I had models in the windows. I would do all kind of creative, innovative things. And so he said, we got a new spot right down in the middle, in the center of the mall next to Victoria's Secret. You want it for the same price? I said, yep, it's mine. And so from there, now this part, y'all, hold on to your seats. Come close, listen up, listen up, listen up. Let me tell you what happened. So I'm in the mall and this is a couple of years in. This was like 2004, about 2008. Do y'all remember when the financial crisis happened? Well, that same mall who thought they were too good for me to be inside that mall ended up going into bankruptcy and closing. And I had to go get a whole new brand location. It ended up being a better location I ended up getting. But that mall ended up going into bankruptcy before my company ever did. So who's speaking now? Who's successful now? Who's working now?
Yep.
So this is the point. When I look at Kamala, I look at a woman when she said, I'm speaking, I'm looking at a woman saying, I know who I am. I got this. I got this. And this is the best decision that you'll be making, and you don't even know that you need to make it. And that's how we have to do as women. Even when they doubt us, we have to stand tall and know that the brilliance that we have and that got us there is the same brilliance that will stand us and take us over. So I'm so excited to be here. I'm so excited to be a part of the Passionistas project, listening to all of these stories, being encouraged and being inspired. And I thank you so much for having me here. But like Kamala said, I'm speaking. Thank you.
Oh, that was awesome. Kim, that's such a great story. That's so inspiring to so many women who, you know, it's really hard to get a business off the ground, and you were very young, but you knew what you wanted and you knew you were ready for it. So thank you for sharing that really inspiring story with all of us. We really appreciate it. So our next storyteller is the LA-based Becky Yamamoto. She's a stand-up comedian, actress, and writer. She performed at SF Sketchfest, Pacific Crest Comedy Festival, and Sacramento Comedy Festival. She created the critically acclaimed web series Uninspired and won Best Actress for a web series pilot at NYTVF for 2 Chans. She's been seen in many TV shows and films like Younger and Fort Tilden, which won the Narrative Feature Grand Jury Prize at the South by Southwest Film Festival. And she's been called priceless by the New York Times. So please welcome the priceless Becky Yamamoto.
Yeah. Hey guys. Thank you, Amy and Nancy, for having me. And you guys have like serious stories. I feel like, I mean, not to be so Asian, but I feel like I'm definitely the underachiever of the group. Because like I'm definitely like the worst Asian. Like I'm definitely the, you know, in the family, they're like, oh, doctor, lawyer, comic. People are like, oh boy, you know, like what do we do with that? So finding my voice it's like a journey. It's been a continual kind of thing. Like I definitely feel like all of y'all have like a real strong sense of yourself, but you know, I feel like I'm definitely somebody who's a bit of a chameleon, you know, and like my voice is like physically like speaking, like giving effort to giving my physical voice is like something I kind of hate sometimes. Like I'm a very low talker and I'd rather mumble, and like my husband always is like, I can't hear you, you know, like, oh, calm down. So it's like, for me, like physically getting my voice together is like a struggle, but So there's that. But so finding my artistic voice has been a real thing. None of you know me, but when I was in high school and college, I was like a real Jesus freak. What? Where that? Okay, to the J man, no one else. Okay, so I was like, Jesus was like technically my boyfriend, you know what I mean? Like, like he was like all I thought about all the time. Like, in college, I joined this campus organization. So it was like Jesus all day. Like, there were like so many meetings, like so many things. I was like a student part-time and a Jesus follower like full-time. I was just like on the side, I'm studying at this very expensive college that my mom is paying for. In the meantime, I'm like, everybody follow Jesus, and people are like, no, thank you, So, anyway, like if I was going to have a real live action boyfriend, they would have to like take the back seat because Jesus was at the wheel, you know what I'm saying? And I was at the passenger seat. This is the car, no one else. Okay. So I feel like I'm saying no one else, like to silence. It's fine. No, there's someone laughing. Here's one. Okay. So so in college, I was Jesus all the time. And then I also, my work study job was at the coffee house. You guys remember the 90s when coffee houses were cool? So if you worked at the coffee house, I was like, like that was an elite job, because that's where all the bands were, the intellectuals, reading books, literature, so many
I don't
thoughts.
know what to do now.
Oh.
I can't get back to it.
Oh, that's okay. Just put on mute. Wait, I'm just kidding. Okay, sorry. Wait. I'm sorry. I'm not supposed to do that. That's the most audience interaction I've had in months. I'm gonna just say that. Like, most of the time, it's like. So, anyway, what was I talking about? Oh, I was talking about working at a coffee house, and I was pretty fancy. But at the coffee house, I met, non-Christians. Like there were non-Christians also, it turns out, in college. And one of my coworkers was like, "Oh my God, you're so funny," and I was like, "Me? Thank you. I know." No, I'm just kidding. So I don't think I really took it that seriously because I didn't let myself kind of go there. I was so in the fellowship, and one of my mentors, in fact, at some point kind of pulled me aside. So my coworker was like, "You're so funny. You should audition to be in the improv group," and I was like, "I don't know. Okay, why not?" But I talked to my mentor at the time in the fellowship, and she was kind of like, "Girl, it's either Jesus or nothing." It's like kind of give me an ultimatum. Are you going to follow Jesus? Or are you going to like practice zip zap zop in a basement with like comedy nerds? You know what I'm saying? So I was like, and at the time I was like, I guess it's Jesus, Jesus is forever. Improv is just kind of a thing for now, it's in the moment, which is the point of improv, you know what I'm saying? Anyway, so I chose my boyfriend, my true love, Jesus, and so for 4 years, that was all I did. That was like, I took 2 summers off, did mission work, and so it was my senior year in college, and there was an organization, and some of it was, I know that Jesus and Christianity has like a mixed, I get it, but I mean, it was a good group. They weren't that shitty. There were some things that were maybe not so, maybe nowadays you're like, ooh, that's a little too much. But anyways, I've met well. Anyway, so when I was graduating college, they were like, "Hey, there's this missions thing that we do. Why don't you apply for it?" And I was like, "Oh, cool. I'm in. I know I'm in. Like I know it's gonna be in. I've been doing all the work. So obviously I didn't get in. I applied, and my boyfriend Jesus was like, "See you later, bitch." He was like, "No thanks." So I didn't get accepted into the missions group, and I really was like, fuck. Oh, I'm sorry. Am I allowed to say that? Anyway, you can bleep it. So I was like, what do I do with the rest of my life? This is all I've been doing. What am I gonna do? And I guess I thought back, like, I've always enjoyed being funny for myself. And it was senior year, so they were having an all-out like talent show, and I was like, you know what? let me do this. Let me own it. Let me do this talent show, you know? And so I wrote an original song. It was what I was feeling at the time. It was called Shake Your Booty. Thank you. It was like, I was thinking, can I shake my booty? Can other people, you know, I was like, I'm just kidding. But it really was called Shake Your Booty. And so it's the night of the talent show. I on my way up the stage, and I'm like, oh my God, how do I follow that Indigo Girls cover? I'm just kidding. I went to an all-girl women's college. That's funny to me. Okay. So I went on stage and I performed Shake Your Booty, and I really was amazing. I mean, none of you were there, but I kind of killed it. Like, it was probably the highlight of the whole talent show, you know? I think everyone remembered it for years to come. They thought of the Shake Your Booty song. I'm just kidding. But really, it was for me, it was a real moment of like, I should have just listened to I should have found my voice earlier, and who knows what else, you know? I mean, I ended up doing comedy later, but I'm just saying, like, I didn't listen to myself. I didn't listen to what was within me. And it was a realization, like, this is what I want. This is who I am. And I'm great at it. Inspiring. Anyone casting? I'm just kidding. So anyways, it really was a huge moment for me where I really feel like I found myself. And yeah, that's my story. And I adopted a dog, so you know, I did something nice. I'm still working on being a better person, because you all have like real stuff you're doing for other people. So I'm really feeling a little underachievement. Anyways, thank you guys so much for having me.
Oh, thank you so much, Becky. That was hysterical. I love that. That Shake Your Booty song is legendary.
Yes.
Excellent. Thank you so much for being here with us. Okay, so our very last storyteller of the night is our very dear, dear, dear friend, Gray Delisle. Gray is a Grammy-winning singer-songwriter who is known as the most prolific voice actress in animation history. She's performed over 1,500 cartoon voices since 1996. Some of them that you might be familiar with are Vicky from The Fairly Odd Parents, Azula from Avatar: The Last Airbender, and Daphne Blake from Scooby-Doo. Her upcoming single Valentine, written by Murray Hammond of Old 97s, will be released on February 1st, with a full album to follow later this year on Regional Records. Gray's a single mom to her 3 kids, and she basically just kicks ass all the time. So please welcome Gray Delisle Griffin.
Oh, who wrote that intro? My God. Oh my goodness. Okay, so I'm the one who got Becky into this. What a big mistake, because now I've got to follow that. I could not. I was like, are we supposed to be laughing on mic, or am I supposed to be quiet? Because I can't be quiet. Sorry. And I have a side note story, Becky, that I went to school and I was super Jesus-y too in high school. And this person had written on their folder, I love Jesus. And I was like, oh my God, I found my purse. Like, this is amazing. We could be, we could have like all this in common. And I was like, oh my God, you love Jesus? I love Jesus too. And she was like, Jesus. Anyway, and then I was just the big dork of the class. Anyway, oh my God, yeah. So my voice, I feel like I've been using my voice my whole life. I've been doing impressions and weird voices from the time I was a little kid. And now I use my voice for my job, doing cartoons, and I play evil babysitters, and little girls with gigantic big red dogs, and little old ladies who just ride around on a scooter all the time on the loud house, and jeepers, I solve mysteries with all my teenage friends in a van. Wear the same outfit every day for the last 20 years. For me, I've been doing the voice for 25 years. Daphne. Anyway, 20 years, not 25. Anyway, so you would think that I would be more in touch with my voice. I was raised by my grandmother for the most part, and she was just a very glamorous Latina. She used to sing with Tito Puente, and she always was like, she was very about vanity and like how you looked all the time. Even when I was, pretty young, she was just like, mijita, you gotta put some lipstick on. You look terrible. You look like you're dead. Put some makeup on, and I'm like, I'm 7. but I just never felt like I was enough, and I always sort of like pushed my own voice down to make everybody else happy. I also had like a kind of an abusive stepfather and like a weird creepy relative who crossed some boundaries, and so it was just my boundaries personally were just all over the place, and it's just really hard for me to say what I really want. You know, I my friends have a joke where they'll go, "Is it high voice okay, Gray, or is it regular voice okay?" Because like they'll say like, "Hey, what plan do you want?" And I'll be like, "Yeah, yeah, that's fine." And they're like, "Oh, so we're not, I think you have a problem with that." And I'm like, "Oh, I'm sorry, God." Okay. So of course, being a single mother of 3 young children and working full time and homeschooling all of them, and when the Passionistas approached me about doing this storytelling event, of course I was like, "Yeah, of course, yeah, I'll do that. Sure." Anyway, so but my story is about just, it's so hard for me to tell people if I don't like something, you know, and or if I just want something to do something different. And it all came to a head at my local nail salon with my friend Nancy, who I've been going to forever to do my nail. I mean, you know, her kids have graduated high school. Like, I mean, we've been through divorces and relationships. We've told each other everything. And I just felt, but I still was too afraid to tell her exactly how I really feel. I just want her to like me, and I want all of them not to think I'm a pain in the ass, and I want everybody to love me. So I went there and was having like kind of a hard week, and she was like, "You know, we do massages here. You look like you could use," and I was like, "That would be amazing." And it was just sort of a rinky-dink situation in the corner of the salon with just like a little shower pole and everything. But she was like, "It's cheap," and you know, and I was like, "You know what? Let's do it. Let's do it." So she's like, "Yeah, okay, so just take everything off and just lay face down in there." And I was like, "Great." So I do that, and it starts off with, I don't like scents. I don't like perfumey things. And she gets out this lotion that was, you know, and like Dracar Noir, just, I don't know why, it was terrible. And I was, of course, going, I'm not going to be able to handle that. I'm going to have to. So I was like, "Hey, do you think that you could do something?" So already I'm feeling like I'm a pain in the ass. She doesn't like me. And she's like, "Oh, no problem, no problem." She goes and gets like a mineral oil or something, starts back up again. And as the massage is going on, she's getting very close to the boobs, like very close from the back. And I'm like, "Okay, all right." So then I turn over and she's going again, and she's getting grazing. And I just keep thinking like, "Oh, I'm gonna have to say something. Oh no, I'm gonna have to say something. I'm gonna have to say something." You know, and and pretty soon she's just all over the boob, you know, just like, and I was like, "Oh God, it's happening. And I've never been, of course, more, I mean, I started out with my shoulders up here, and I'm more like I'm more, what do you call that? I'm like more non-relaxed than ever. And so, but then she goes away from and I'm like, "Okay, I'm not going to have to say anything else. Okay. But if it happens again, I'm going to have to just say, I just can't." Anyway, another funny thing is that during the massage, she actually checked in with me to see if it was okay. And I still she said, "Is that okay?" And I was like, "Yeah, that's okay." And so I even had an opportunity to speak up, and I still didn't. So she doesn't know the high voice is the thing. She doesn't know me that well. Anyway, so she starts going for the face, and I have really sensitive skin. I know I'm coming off like a real sensitive, a real hothouse flower over here, but I just can't. It's like the smells and then the stuff on my face. I'm like, "Oh, I'm gonna be broken out for about 2 weeks," and I still didn't say anything. I'm just gonna deal with this cystic acne for 2 weeks.
No.
But I have Mexican hair. I have Irish skin color, but I have Mexican hair, and it takes me, even as it is now, it took me like 2 hours just to get I have very frizzy, curly, you know, hair that I have to really, you know, it takes like 2 hours to blow it out. Then I got to curl, and it's a job. I actually only wash my hair like once a week. I know it's a lot of remembers. It actually is not too bad, but anyway, but it takes me, and I only do it once a week because it's such a job. So she starts going for the hair with the oil, and that was when my grandmother's vanity and everything came to a head inside of me and came up out of my mouth. I was like, "Nancy, I'm so sorry. I cannot have you touch my hair. It will take me 3 hours, and I've already got cystic acne. I cannot have that hair." And that was the day that Grandma's vanity and she helped me find my voice. So.
Excellent.
Oh, Gray. That is awesome. And I just wanted, for the record, we emailed Gray when we asked her to do this. So
Yeah, we
could
didn't
not-
hear the high voice.
Couldn't hear the high voice. So next time we'll call you before we put you on the spot. Sorry about that.
I love you guys. Thanks for inviting me.
We love you too. We love you all. All of you storytellers tonight, all you women were so incredible, and we're so grateful, and we're so excited to now have a conversation with all of you. So without further ado, I want to introduce our producing partner for tonight. This was actually Karen's idea to do this. She knows we've been doing these events, and she said, you're going to do one to celebrate Kamala, right? So we are really grateful to Karen for suggesting this, and really grateful that she helped us produce it and that she's here tonight to moderate our roundtable discussion. So Karen began her career as a journalist and spent 17 years at the Television Academy, heading their Archive of American Television, which is where we met her. And she gave us our first taste at interviewing people and changed our lives. Just recently, Karen retired from her role as Vice President and Chief Curator at the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, a position she held for almost 7 years. She's our mentor and our dear friend, and we're honored to have her with us tonight to moderate the roundtable discussion. So Stina, if you can bring all of the storytellers and Karen on with us, we'll get started. There's Karen. And you can bring all the storytellers on to Christina, if you don't mind. Thank you. Excellent.
Excellent.
Is everyone on?
Gray, is that your grandmother on your mug?
Yes. Oh, see how glamorous
Ava.
she is? So glamorous. You can't keep up with that. Anyway. I didn't even realize that I didn't even realize I brought her with me to the she's speaking. Anyway.
she wants to be a part of the girl party.
She would.
Yeah. Okay. And we just need
Karen there?
Helen. Just need Helen and we'll be all set.
Right, I'm still laughing. Like, who carries tension in their breasts? Like, it's never been a problem for me, like, ever.
My areola are very, very stressed. Yes.
Oh my God.
Oh, man. All right, Karen, we'll turn it over to you.
Okay, we all on? I can't see anyone, so hopefully we're all
You
on.
look amazing.
Okay, well, first of all, I can't see anyone, but thank you, Amy and Nancy, for inviting us all and truly being a force in women's empowerment. This is incredible. So, you know, the stories I'm just fangirling out about from everyone who spoke tonight. It's been really, really fantastic. So first of all, just thank you, Amy and Nancy, and thank you for everyone who's been on the panel tonight. It's just really a great experience. As Amy and Nancy said, we were talking about celebrating Kamala Harris and her inauguration. And one of the things that really struck us was I'm Speaking, the title of this specific event, as well as something that she said, I think everyone, I know everyone on the panel saw her at that moment. And I want to ask everyone on the panel what you thought that moment when you heard her say I'm speaking, the way she did it and what that meant. And why that resonates so much with us. Again,
Well, I'll go ahead. For me, I'm a political junkie, so I've been watching all the debates, and I've been in California. She's our U.S. senator, or was our U.S. senator. So I actually got to work with her when she was in San Francisco, and she came and spoke to a couple of our events. So I've had this fangirl obsession with her ever since. And I was just waiting for those moments of where you saw a woman really kind of own the room. And she's really good for that, right? She you can count on her. She's going to be polite. She's going to be fair, but she's also going to ensure that her voice is being heard. So I just started applauding, and I was on this text thread with my friends, and we're like, yes, yes, yes. And it just, it's what you're all looking for, right? That person to be your champion, to be your advocate. And that for me, that moment just was her fulfilling that role that she does so well.
I'll go next. As an Asian American, I was incredibly proud, I would say, because in India, women are not seen. It's a very male-dominated society. So for women, we're kind of under the radar always. And my husband and my father will tell you that that is how strong women lead. And that's, I give them credit for saying that, but they, to their benefit or not, they had two very strong, outspoken women in their lives. And to hear Kamala say that meant that it gave every woman a license to say, I'm in the room, my voice matters, I'm smart, I'm here for a reason, pay attention. And I think that was a very powerful turning point for women in this country, because we now had the same opportunity to speak. And she has broken that ceiling for us. And that is one of the most powerful things about what she said. And also, Amy and Nancy, what you all are doing through the Passionistas project is giving women the opportunity and the platform. And quite frankly, the confidence to step up and say, you know what, I am here. I've got this. Step back. It's our time.
Yeah, and I would say, go ahead, Lisa.
You go, I'll go right after you.
Okay, I was just about to say, it was the head nod for me. She was like, I'm speaking. It was the head nod for me. The head nod, you know what that means, okay? You ever had a mama, I don't know, for me, it's like a black mama, you know, when she do you a head nod, I'm speaking, you like this, you know what that means. You know, like basically calm down for a minute, you know. And so, and it's that sort of, it was the head nod for me. You know, it was the head nod with the I'm speaking that lets you know, I'm serious. I'm for real. Look at me in the eyes. I'm looking at you. She's looking straight at him. You know, she turned to look. She's not looking at the camera anymore. She's looking at him. Right. And so,
Right.
you know, it's that you're not going to intimidate me. I'm not shy, you know, and I don't know who you dealt with before. You know, it was a lot in there. I don't know who you dealt with before, but I'm speaking. So it was the head nod for me.
It's funny. My mother's on this right now. I don't give the head nod, Mom. That's pretty on the spot. For me, it was it resonated when I moved from nursing into tech. I moved from a field that was 90% female to a field that was 90% male. So I've had to use that phrase before. I had to find a much more corporate, polite way to say that. But what I loved was she just said it, and it then opens up that discussion of why did she have to, she didn't even just say it once. She had to say it probably 4 or 5 times during that debate. So in what context was it okay to speak over her? So she had to remind you she was already speaking. I thought that was also extremely powerful and maybe one of the lasting legacies in terms of conversations that'll happen around what she said.
Absolutely. Why do you think it took so long? I mean, it's 2020, and that's that, and we're hearing that, almost for the first time. What was it? Why do we feel like we're not being heard? And and actually seeing it in these debates.
We haven't had a woman in that position sitting at the table.
And I always remind people this too, even though historically it seems like a long time, it really hasn't been. We didn't get the right to vote almost less than 100 or 100 years ago, right? This is the celebration of a 100-year anniversary in 2020. And you didn't really see equal rights
Not all
for
women.
colored women until 1960s with the Civil Rights Act. So when you think about the trajectory of political life here in the United States, it hasn't been that long. And when you think about Ruth Gator Ginsburg, which I know a lot of us are fans about, you know, she graduated top of her class and couldn't get a job. So when you think of that, the history of women's empowerment is not a long history. The majority of the history is that we have been shut out. Specifically, women of color have been shut out. So I think, you know, you have to think about almost from the 60s to now, it's been an incredible progress. But what I see is that we have to keep the progress going because there's a lot to fight for still, and we cannot be complacent.
And how do we do that? You know, how do we keep that going?
I think we do that by talking and speaking and placing ourselves in situations where we are validated. And even when we're not validated, we need to keep pushing. And I think it's an evolution that is happening. And I totally agree with Helen that we're very early in our rise as women finding voices, but we're getting there. And I think this is one of many steps that is going to happen.
I also think refusing to be ignored. I know that saying of "so good they can't ignore you," but there were several stories, Kim and Helen's stories, that stood out to me of this refusal to be ignored, this refusal to, you know, kind of be silenced and put in your place, and saying, "No, I have a place here, and it's not wrong for me to be here and to insist on being here."
That's what I was about to say too. I think we get there further as women by taking risks. You know, I think, you know, for us, it's about taking risks. You know, I think it's about, you know, doing the stuff that you feel like, well, I don't want to, you know, I don't want to take that chance. I don't want to, you know, and it's like, no, take the risk. You know, like they say, you know, like be risque, you know, take the risk. Like don't sort of play safe or be risk adverse. I think taking risk is going to help to progress us forward. Because we have great examples in history. The first, you know, self-made millionaire woman, Madam C.J. Walker, you know, like, you know, that galvanized other women to do things and to sell and to become economically empowered. Like, you know, we have to take risks. I think that's where it's at. And also too, let me say this. Let your husband raise their family. Let other stuff happen, you know, like take risk on the role that you play, even in your family. Don't all the time, you know, do what society has told you that you're supposed to do with your partner. If you're not, you know, whatever type of relationship you're in, like let them like take the lead in and be a part of that instead of us always trying to be what society says, plus try to be our dreams. Bump that. Be your dreams.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Love that. That's right.
So take some risks.
I've asked you,
Oh, sorry.
I just want to remind everyone in the audience too, if you want to ask a question, to please type it into the chat, and we'll make sure that it gets asked as well.
So many parents I know, mothers, I'm a single mother, and their dad lives in Nashville, so he can't really come. So it's just funny because it's like, I mean, it wouldn't occur to anyone to go, why don't they just go stay with him? He can produce music and do the kids. It's just like nobody ever would ever say that. And so, you know, I feel like women are always kind of just going in and just doing what needs to be done. That's why it's exciting to see a woman in a great position of power in our country, because she's going to get shit done.
Yeah, the thing is, women do get all the stuff done, but you know, but they aren't. Again, the voices aren't always there. You know, it's always in the background. It's always, you know, it's not so much, you know, the person speaking. So, you know, how do we move that forward as well?
Yeah.
I also think we do what we're doing, which is make sure that we're not the only woman at the table. It's been hard enough to become the only woman at the table. That's been enough of a fight. But now we have to make sure we're bringing, when we have the opportunity, we're bringing other women to the table, because we'll feel more comfortable. They're going to have to listen. If there's 3 of us in the room and it's someone's turn to talk, we have better odds of being the voice that's heard. So to me, it's about making sure that we're supporting and promoting other women, not just ourselves.
Yeah, and also maybe there's a modulation thing to it too, because Poonam said, we're often silenced by the louder voices in the room, and those are usually not women that have the louder voices. So that's another thing. Have you guys felt that as well in your journeys?
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah. But I think it takes time to break those barriers down. And every time we walk into the room and we present it in the manner in which that it's appropriate, I think people are going to start listening. And I think it's weird because we can get all this stuff done, and yet we have to walk a tightrope in corporate America, right? And it makes really no sense, because guess who's going to be the ones who's going to get it done? It's the women. And yet we're sidelined. But I think the more that we bring value and we bring our ideas forth in the right manner, more conducive to the way someone else wants to hear it, which is not necessarily how we would want it, but we have to play the game a little bit too. And when we play that game, we make progress. And I will say that's what I think Kamala did. She played the game. And because she played the game, she never lost who she was, but she played the game and she took who she was with her. And I think that's the powerful story that comes out of her, is that she never has lost sight of who she is, but she's played the game. She's played her profession well. And I hate to use the word played because that's a terrible word, but that's what it is.
That's so true though. And I think part of it too is just the confidence that she radiated, and it was a confidence that was her very own. And I see a lot of that in all of you as well, and how you told your stories. And it really was about, getting that confidence and keeping it. How do you do that? How do you keep your confidence in that voice that you've, finally found?
I think it's really hard. I mean, I have a problem with confidence as a performer often, and I think it's like for me personally, it's tapping into just what I like when I'm able to do it. And then, but it doesn't always work. I definitely do have times where I falter and where I'm not feeling myself, but performance is always so in the moment that you really have to kind of modulate and change it. But anyway, but it's always evolving for me, at least.
I also feel like women come together more in support of you if you just, I don't know, I feel like in the male world, being confident no matter what is a strength, because I feel like men sometimes can hone in on a weakness and have that tear you down. But I feel like when I'm with women, just acknowledging like, hey, I'm feeling insecure right now. I don't know if I can, I'm, and that's sort of when people are like, oh God, I'm so glad you said that, because I feel that too. Let's all join ranks and lift everybody up, So I find when I'm working with women, just being honest about if anybody's feeling weak or whatever, we always seem to like fill in where anybody's, just to bring the whole group up rather than tear someone down, to get ahead.
I found that like working with women directors too, there's like a completely different energy when you have a woman director, like a woman's in charge. They're a lot more, I don't know, like they take care of it, people. And it's, I don't know. I personally prefer it. But.
I feel like raising a daughter, it's so funny. I must be praising my daughter's strength so much, because the other day my son goes, boys are strong too. I was like, I'm overcompensating. My daughter's very beautiful, and I always make it a point to never tell her how beautiful I always say, you're so strong and you're so smart. I love it. And I'm always trying to compliment her in different ways. But my son, I guess I just do it a little too much. Yeah, it's like, oh, yes, I know boys are strong.
But he knows he's beautiful, so.
Yeah, he is beautiful.
I always try, I kind of say this when you talk about like confidence. I always just say, just have the confidence of a mediocre white man. Nobody can come tell them, that they, are not, whatever they're working on, whatever they're doing. They're not going, oh my gosh, I wonder if, and it's just, sometimes and I've been in the tech world, in the startup world a lot with my business. And so Lisa, knows, but like when they're pitching their businesses and stuff, that when they're asking for millions of dollars for these ventures, and they, and the thing is that a lot of times, we try to get the most degrees and the most certifications and the most and we're trying to go after this. And I'm just like, the confidence of a mediocre sometimes doesn't even, not thinking about all that, and so that's sort of what I think about a lot of times, is that sometimes we hold ourselves back by trying to, think about everything to try to get to that level, when a lot of times it is, you already got it. If you think you qualified as a woman, you probably overqualified. So, I haven't ran into a woman most of the time who doesn't think she's more than what she actually is. And so, and I've been working with women for my whole adult life. And so I just always kind of remind women of that, so they can show up fully and be confident.
Oh my God, that's such a great point. In fact, I remember one of the best things that's in the book Lean In is when they talk about a report from Hewlett Packard, and it said that men will apply for a job if they meet like 60%, and women have to meet all 100% of the requirements. And that's so true. I think that's something that, you really have to get over to say, okay, it is a confidence issue as well as a finding your voice issue.
Jim Comey is proof of that. The fact that he's still on TV talking, I'm like, if a woman pulled that shit, what you pulled in 2016, she would be in a basement hiding for 10 years. Are you kidding me? Go away. Anyway.
Oh my God, that's so true. True.
Yep.
I think we all saw that. I think we've all seen that in our lives and careers. It's such a natural thing. You don't even think about it sometimes.
My son will go, Mom, look, Mom, look, Mom. And I look, and then he jumps about 1 inch off the ground. And I was like, oh, I think I get men now. Okay.
Nancy, did you have some questions from the audience that you wanted to?
Yeah, we're starting to get some questions from the audience. So the first one is, are there specific exercises or practices you can offer to help women become more empowered?
I know at Hope what we do is really demystify any kind of process that has to do with either political or advancing in your career. And we do that a lot with role playing and putting the women in certain situations. So for example, if we're doing a process around the state budget, we have individuals that come in and talk about the state budget, but then we have an exercise for the women to put together a state budget. And once they do that, they're like, oh, I got this. This is, so a lot about it is just demystifying the process and creating a network and a fellowship in which you can make mistakes without risking, your credibility, you're stepping on someone else's toes. So creating that environment where you're safe. So my 2 cents would be, think about the environment that you're creating. Is it a safe environment in which people can fail and fail with good feedback? And how do you break down the process so that it's not simplified because the person can't get it, but it just goes back to that confidence. So much of what we do is really not that hard. There's only really a few brain surgeons out there and people that need to do brain surgery, right? A lot of this, especially being involved in politics, anyone can file to run for office. So it's just understanding the process there. You don't need a degree to file for office, obviously, as you can tell. So all this to say is, once we're each other's best friends, and you don't even have to be in agreement of everything, but once you have someone's back and help them walk through the process, and all of you have these incredible careers that you probably have learned so much that you said, gosh, if I could just share that information, that's going to give that person that much more of a leg up. And that's what we have to do, is just demystify everything.
Good. That's good.
We have a question for Gray. Jennifer says, thank you everyone for telling your stories. I want to ask Gray if she has an unspeaking story in the world of voiceover. Any advice for women like me who are starting out in the voiceover industry?
Oh my goodness. Well, I work with mostly men, but thank goodness they're all pretty good eggs, all drama nerds. So they tend to be a little bit, they've been in touch with their feminine sides. But if you're starting out in voiceover, I would say, excuse me, I'm talking right now, honey, I'm talking right now. Please go. Sorry, I'm speaking right now. I can't believe I said I'm talking. Anyway, just 1 minute, please go. I'm in 1 minute. Sorry.
No problem. That might be a fire you gotta put out. There might be a fire you gotta put out.
No, at one point he did come in with a bloody toe, and he's like, "I am bleeding," and I'm like, "Oh my god." Okay, that was
you can leave this event if one of your child is injured.
It was a little stub toe. But anyway, I thought he stepped in dog poop, so it was actually a relief that he was only bleeding. Oh boy. Bleeding. Okay. Okay. Yeah. Getting in voiceover. Right now they're hiring influencers. So if you have a platform, which is great because, we're all, most people have a computer and a microphone. And if you can get some sort of audience going, and also during the pandemic, even though it's such a terrible thing that's happened to our country, it has opened up a lot of avenues all over the world for you to take a class with someone like, there's a woman named Mary Elizabeth McGlynn who I just advertised her voiceover class on my Twitter. If you go to my Twitter at Gray Delisle, and she's doing, and you would never be able to take a class with her unless you lived in the Los Angeles area. And now if you could be in Australia and take a class with her, which is amazing. And there's also Charlie Adler, who's a big animation director. He does online classes right now, too. And I feel like, really take advantage of this time when everybody's home, because there's all kinds of alternate opportunities popping up. So, yeah. But get a following. We hire influencers, even bad ones. Sometimes I'm like, who is this person? I'm like, Google. And then I'm like, oh, they have 4 million followers on TikTok. Okay, great.
And Gray, while you're there, a little while ago, someone asked, actually it was Helen, requested, would you please do Azula for us?
I'm going to have it in recording.
Well, hello there, Helen. Greetings. I like that you're wearing the Fire Nation colors today. Yes. And I won't banish you because your story was pretty good, I guess. I wouldn't give you a compliment. She would just...
I'm going to be the most popular person with my boys now. And it is a family tradition. Every year we watch the Airbender. It's like must over the weekend. So I was just like, when they read your bio, I'm like, what? Wait, did they just
give your kids names to Amy and Nancy, and I'll send them a message.
Oh my God. Okay.
Yes. Okay. I will.
That'd be great. That'd be fantastic.
Yes.
Thank you for doing that.
No problem.
I just wanted to add something to the confidence exercise, because being an entrepreneur, being a woman leader, you trying to move up in your job management, all kind of stuff, you do have to exude confidence. No one wants, even if, no matter what industry you're in, I can think of so many different situations where you don't want a person walking in seeming like they're unsure or not quite there, right? And so when you think about exercises for confidence, because I love what Becky said, her confidence is always evolving, and so is mine. Because you come, for me, I want to, level up or move to the next level, and then it requires another level of confidence, and for me not to get imposter syndrome every time, it requires that, right? And so when I think about the exercises that I do, For me, a lot of times I use affirmations. A lot of times I use those affirmations. A lot of times I talk to myself. How about that? I talk to myself, and I'm like, I'll say, or I'll write down some things that are the reason why I'm a badass. I'm just like, okay, this is the reason why. I have to write it down. I have to remind myself. I'm like, that's right. And I'm like, and then I'm like channeling myself, and then I'm putting on some good music, and then I'm like, yeah, I'm fire. You just have to sometimes do your own pep rally, sort of pump yourself up and give yourself that, because if you go outside trying to look for someone to give you that, sometimes you may not get it, and they won't get it until you do. So that's why the confidence is so important, because once you exude that confidence, then everybody else are like, oh no, she's a thought leader, and using things like, depending on what industry you're in, like writing blogs or writing articles for LinkedIn, all that kind of stuff, you're just saying, I'm a thought leader. I'm confident in the information I know. And people start addressing you that way. If you have a title, if you have something you've worked for, make people address you as that. Right. And so make people say your name right. It's just small things you can do over time that starts to be where you're injecting your confidence and exercising that.
Oh, that's a great point. Also, the fact that you brought up not just speaking, in a room or whatever, but using your writing, using other tools to do that. Are there other people on the panel that have something to say about that, about using the other things that are available to you?
Oh,
I
well,
would-
go ahead. Go ahead.
Oh, thanks, Gray. I was just going to say, piggybacking on what Kim is saying, the other thing is that women attach age to what they're doing. And in my home, I was the lead parent. I had 4 adult children, as you all know, but someone needed to be home with them. And that was me. And I was happy to do so. So my voice and my passions are just now being experienced. I'm able to think about things that I had not been able to think about. And women limit themselves when they get to the 50s and say, oh, we're over the hill. We can't do this. We can't do that. Well, let me tell you, I started running at 40. I've run 4 marathons since. Listen, age is not a defining parameter of what we can do. We impose those. So Kim, you're absolutely right. We need to be self-confident, and especially as we get older, because we are still trying to find out who we are. Because many times people, when we get our kids off to college, we just then have the chance to figure out what we want to pursue. So age is not defining as well.
Yes. I was going to say that my grandmother used to, before I went to bed at night, she used to tell me like her favorite her favorite things about me. And she would try to do different things every night. So now I do that with my children. I say, and it's so cute because I've been doing it so much that now if I run out of, because I'm always trying to think of a new thing that I noticed about them or something they did that day or a way that I like that they were shared with their brother or whatever, And then now sometimes if I can't think of something, my child will chime in with, and I'm also, a good artist. And I just think like, oh, good, because I got so much praise as a little kid. I mean, I have friends who go, no, I tell my kids, they tear their kids down a little bit and they say, well, when they get out into the world, they need to know how the real world is. But I was like, no, there's time for that. You need to build up that kid and like the strongest foundation ever, because the world is a tidal wave that's going to come crashing down. And if they don't have like that strong foundation, because when I grew up, I just had been fed so much sunshine from my grandmother that I went into the acting world. And of course, everybody every day tells you you're not good enough, you're not thin enough, you're not cute enough, you're not funny enough. I mean, that's all you hear. But I was so deluded by the time I was like, well, my grandma thinks I'm great, so anyway, I'll just go on to the next place. I mean, nothing could shake my confidence because I was just sure. And so I want to do that for my children too, for them to have that strong, not a vanity, but just a sense of self that's just unshakable.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
That's a really, really good point. And Punim, you mentioned about age, and a lot of people too, in their 50s, there's that invisibility that starts too, just in general. Does anyone have anything to say about that in terms of, how do you sort of get through that invisibility that you start to see as you get older?
SAG has a whole thing for, I'm sorry, the Writers Guild has a whole section for women over 40. That's like a subsection of writers that need more attention. And I thought, my God, that's crazy. That seems just I don't want to use a pejorative, but that just seems bonkers to me. Like you need a whole subset. You're 40? What? That's young. I don't know. My grandma also always used to tell me, don't ever tell yourself, oh, if I was thinner, I would do that. If I was younger, I would do that. Because she said, I look back at pictures of myself and go, oh my God, look how cute I was. Look how young I was. And I thought I was too old to do it. And she lived to be 94 and was, doing things and,
wow.
Doing things all the way up until her 90s. So yeah, she learned to play guitar when she was like 70 or something. So anyway.
Well, that's great. Amy and Nancy, are we out of time?
I think we are.
I think sadly we have to wrap it up. We
this was so
can't
fun.
thank you enough for joining us. Before we go, we do want to do our quick giveaway for everyone who came tonight. For those of you who don't know, in addition to the podcast and these events, we also do a subscription box, which is a quarterly box that is filled with products exclusively from women-owned businesses and female artisans to help support women-owned businesses. As we've all discussed tonight, it's not always an easy road for women who start companies. So they're totally amazing products. We try to really fill it with unusual, interesting things. And
That
this
Filipino hot
quarter's,
chocolate. I'm addicted.
oh my God,
So good.
to die for.
Yes.
It's in here, hot
Yes.
chocolate. So this quarter's box theme is Passionistas Pamper. So it's all sorts of great things to snuggle in and have a nice warm night on a winter evening. So
What are you during watching the inauguration?
yes, you can have a little cocoa in your soft slippers.
I love them.
After you take a bath. Yeah. So if Stina would pull up the magic spinny wheel, we will see who wins. John Breyer. Woo!
A man won. Darn it.
A man won.
Isn't that always the way?
Groom.
How did he get in
Hoping
here?
John has a lovely mother or sister that he can share that with, a wife or significant other.
Well, congratulations, John. Please email us at info@thepassionistasproject.com with your mailing address and also the shoe size of the woman that you hopefully will be gifting this to. Maybe you want a pair of pink fuzzy slippers for yourself, which is fine. Just send us your shoe size. And also, just as a reminder, anyone who upgraded to their tickets to include a t-shirt or a face mask, please email us your mailing address as well and your shirt size.
So we want to thank all of the incredible women who performed tonight. Helen Torres, Lisa Brooks, Punim Saxena, Kim Roxy, Becky Yamamoto, and Delisle Griffin. We also want to thank Karen Herman for being our moderator. Great job, Karen. Thank you. And we want to thank Christina, who is our technical person. She is the wind beneath our wings. We would not be able to do this without her. We would be sweating through the whole thing. So Christina, make sure you put your information in the chat as well, so that anybody who is doing a professional Zoom, you should hire Christina because she's amazing.
It would be funny if we hired a man for that. It's like we needed a man. We couldn't.
We're very good about finding women that. The amazing thing is women can do pretty much everything. I don't know if everybody has figured that out yet. But we are going to put in the chat, we're going to put all of the storytellers' contact, their social media, their websites. Please make sure you follow them, you support them. They all deserve full attention from all of you moving forward. So thank you to all of you. We really appreciate it.
Yes.
Thanks so much.
And we
Thank
also
you.
want to thank those of you who have already donated to Every Last One and Girls Inc. And if you haven't donated and you would like to, please visit their websites at everylastone.org and girlsinc.org. So we will also put all that information in the chat for you.
And Christina, can you bring everybody, all the storytellers back up on screen? And everybody who's listening, we wanted to thank our audience for being here tonight. We really appreciate you all tuning in and listening, and we hope this inspired you all to go out and speak your voices if you haven't been. If you want to find us, we're at thepassionistasproject.com. We're going to keep doing these events, and we have a podcast, and we have an annual Women's Equality Summit that's very similar to this. Poonam was part of it last year. And we have a weekend of women raising their voices and fighting for equality for everyone. So if you could unmute yourselves, and let's give everybody here tonight a round of applause. And thank you all so much.
Thank you, everyone.
Everyone.
Love you all.
Good.
Bye.
Thank you.